date is March 3rd, 1996. Survivor is Boris Ivanir. Last name at birth is Ivanir. The interviewer is Louise Bobrow. The city is Phoenix in the state of Arizona. Country is United States of America. And the language is in English. My name is Louise Bobrow. Today's date is March the 3rd, 1996. I am conducting an interview with survivor Boris Ivanir. The interview is being conducted in Phoenix, Arizona. Good morning.
Good morning.
What is your complete name?
My name is Boris Ivanir.
Would you spell that, please?
Iwanier.
And would you spell your first name, please?
Boris, Boris.
Was that your name at birth?
No.
What was your name at birth?
My name at birth was Berl, Berl.
And the same last name?
And the same last name.
Why was there a change in name?
The name I changed to survive in the Ukraine. So I didn't look like a Jewish when I got dressed, and my name was Boris, and they called it Ivanir, Ivanov. So it didn't sound like a Jewish name, so this is my surviving name. That's why I keep that name.
Did you have any nicknames at all?
No.
What is your birth date?
My birth date is 8/23/1921.
What is your present age?
75.
Where were you born?
I was born in Berhomet, on the Romania.
Would you spell that, please? Berhomet.
Berhomet.
And did you say that was in Romania?
In Romania.
How would you describe Berhomet when you were growing up? What was the town like?
It was a very small town with a small Jewish population. We had even 2-3 synagogues, but still a small population. And we were always hiding that they should know that we are Jewish as much as possible. But we lived, that time we didn't know any other way of living, so I think it was all right. But it was very hard to survive. It was very hard.
Berhomet was near what large city?
Berhomet was a city near Berhomet, about 18 kilometers was Vizhnitsa. And there was a big yeshiva with a famous rabbi, the Vizhnitsa rabbi. So we were known that section because of that yeshiva. And then was Storozhnet, was a little bigger city. And the biggest one was Chernovitz.
Approximately what was the population when you were growing up of Berhomet?
I'll say about between 950, 900. I really don't know exactly.
And out of the 950 population, how many people would you say were Jewish?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 20-25%.
Was the town an agricultural town or was it a commercial town?
It was more commercial. It was at wooded areas, and the commerce was the lumbers. That there was a big count, and he had owned everything, and that's where we survived. Most of the people survived on that.
Do you remember the home or the apartment that you grew up in? How would you describe it?
Well, we had a home. I remember it was across from the railroad. So it was popular more because it was across from the railroad. And it was very primitive, but it was nice, comfortable. We were, at that time we were home, yet there was about 13 people. So we had 2 big rooms and a kitchen, kind of, and the facilities were the outhouses. And that's where we lived.
Do you remember the street that the house was on?
Yeah, I remember the street, but don't ask for a name because there was no names on anything. There was the main street. They went from one city to the other, and that's all.
So your house was on the main street?
Yeah, it was on the main street.
I'd like to talk a little bit now about your parents. What was your father's name?
My father's name was Avram.
And his last name?
Was Ivanir.
And his occupation?
He was he had a butcher store.
And how would you describe your father?
Well, my father was a very kind man, and everybody liked him in town, even the Gentile people. But when he died, I was 7 years old, so I don't remember much of him.
And your mother's name?
My mother's name was Gittel, and she was a very, very good mother and a very, very hard worker in her life, because she was left over with 9 children left in the house, and it was a very hard life for her.
What was her maiden name?
Haller.
And did she have an occupation?
No, she helped my father in the butcher store. That's what it was.
And after he died, did she work?
After he died, we still, with the children, we kept that butcher store going a little bit. And that's how we survived.
You had brothers and sisters, correct?
Yeah.
Would you briefly name them?
Oh, we had, one was Shika, one was Harry, one was Fischl, Yechiel, Mordechai, and the sisters was Fitche, Leitje, Rivka, Rose, Peppy, and myself, Boris, and one was killed from a peasant, and the other ones died, which I don't remember exactly what it was.
Do you recall any memories of your brothers and sisters and yourself when you were young?
Well, the only thing that I remember that as a kid, when I was 6 or 7 years old, I used to take care of children, on their children, but nothing especially that I know. My one brother-in-law worked for a small railroad that went into the woods for the lumbers, and the other ones I really don't remember much.
Do you remember your grandparents at all?
No, I don't remember. I know one grandfather from my father's side was living, was in the late 90s, and he lost one foot in the First World War. But he was a nice, strong man anyway. He was living till the mid-90s.
Did you know him? Did you meet him?
No, that's what my mother used to tell me.
So they were all deceased by the time you were born?
My grandparents, yes.
What schools did you attend prior to the war?
Well, I attend Hebrew schools, public schools, high schools, religious high schools. And then later on, I attended an, what do you call that? It was special trade schools in the later years. And then the German came in, so I finished with the schooling.
So how many years of schooling did you have, approximately?
Oh, I had about 14 years of schooling.
And where was the schooling?
Because by us, I started in the Hebrew schools. I was 4 years old. And the schools were in Berhamet, and then was in Vizhnitsa, and they ended in Chernivtsi.
And what kind of trade school did you attend? For what trade?
Mechanically.
How would you describe your religious background?
Very orthodox. Very religious.
Can you recall how some of the holidays were celebrated in your home? For example, could you start with Shabbos? What do you recall about Shabbos?
Shabbos was, by us, when it came Friday in the afternoon, late in the afternoon, and the house was already Shabbos. There was no any other way. It was Shabbos until Saturday night when my mother said that prayer and my father lighted that candlelight, and that was out of Shabbos. Otherwise, you couldn't do nothing. You had to sit, whatever, you go to the synagogue to do things, but that's about all. Nothing else.
Do you recall any of the foods that you ate for Shabbos?
Oh, do I remember? My mother used to make a cholent. She used to put in a pot of bones and beans and whatever else in the oven, and the next day by 12 o'clock she used to take it out and it was ready for food. Because we didn't have much food, but whatever she made, so she prepared it on Friday for Saturday.
Did she bake challah?
Oh yeah, she baked her own challah. It was very tasty, very good. She used to make her own matzahs and everything.
Did you attend synagogue for Shabbos?
Every day. Shabbos and every day.
Did you belong to a certain synagogue?
Oh yeah, we had a nice synagogue there, which most of the Jews went to synagogue there. There was no reform and there was no conservative. It was one synagogue and everybody used to go there. Some people didn't go maybe on during the week, but Saturday it was packed. There was nothing else than the synagogue.
Was there just one synagogue in
In my part, there was another one on the second part of town.
What do you recall about Pesach?
Oh, that was a big thing because my mother started about 4 or 5 weeks before, not 4 or 5 weeks, because in December already she used to feed geese and used to prepare the fat, and that was for Pesach already. And then it was 4 or 5 weeks. They started to clean the houses and to paint the houses. It wasn't paint like you have it here, but they kind of painted it and cleaned it up. And it was 4 or 5 weeks we were working to prepare for Pesach.
Did you have a particular job that you were assigned to for Pesach?
Well, as a kid, I used to check my mother that everything should be done, because that was very important. And I used to prepare feathers, and when we sweep the chametz on the day before Pesach, so we put a couple of feathers and we burn it. So I used to prepare a feather from a turkey or from a goose, a long one, and that I remember I used to prepare that to have it for the day when we took out the breadcrumbs or whatever from the house outside to burn it.
What do you recall about the actual Seder?
Oh, that was the most beautiful thing. We had a big family. And then when my sister got married and my brothers, and we had 20, 30 people at the Seder, and that was something my father used to sit down, which I don't remember much of my father, but whatever I remember, it was something beautiful. And when my father died, my elder brother took over this ceremony. We had 2 nights, 2 seders we used to make.
Did you prepare your own matzah?
Oh, yeah, we used to bake. All the people from town used to get together and used to bake the matzah for Pesach. Yeah.
Did you have a sukkah for Sukkot in your yard?
Yes, what a question. We had a sukkah. We had a big sukkah. My sister just put her own flowers inside and prepared it for the holidays. It was beautiful. It was nice. It was different living. Everything is like a dream today. You don't see these things today anymore.
What other holidays? How about Purim? Do you have any recollections of Purim?
Yeah, Purim, we used to, first of all, my mother used to bake things and prepare things, and then we used to send out shalchamunas to everybody, you know, a little present. We used to send to other people used to send to us, and it was very, very famous and very nice. And then we fast on Estatanis before Purim. And then in the evening we used to read the Megillah and to eat. And the next day it was Purim. In the afternoon, around 3, 4 o'clock, we had a big Suda, a big party for all the kids, for everybody. And it was nice. And I remember my mother used to prepare a challah, a big one, very big one. And that was prepared for Purim.
Are there any other holidays that stand out in your mind that you celebrated that you'd like to recall?
Well, with the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur wasn't much celebrating. It was more praying. But Sukkot was already nice when we ate every day in the sukkah and we prepared the sukkah. It was already more happier holiday at that time.
Did you have a bar mitzvah?
Oh yeah, sure, I had a bar mitzvah. And that time, boys, we had bar mitzvah, but there was no bat mitzvahs for girls in that time. So it was very, very important, a bar mitzvah. I remember my bar mitzvah. My father wasn't alive anymore, but I remember that the rabbi from town prepared me, and it was very, very nice. I really, I still remember it. I never can forget it.
What do you recall specifically about it?
I was doing the prayers, and I used to read the Torah, and I used to give him a speech. And that time I used to have a very good voice, so everybody liked to listen to me. And it was nice. It was, you know, I was very comfortable.
How would you describe the Jewish community in Berhamet?
What shall I say? How shall I say? They were very Orthodox religious Jews. Everybody was business. One had a little farm, one had a little store, one had a little dressmaker, a shoemaker, a carpenter. You know, everybody had some kind of a profession, and this was the living there.
Were there other Jewish institutions besides synagogue? The synagogue, was there a
no.
Jewish theater or any?
Not in Berhamet. In Cherniv it was nice Jewish theater, but in Berhamet not.
How would you describe yourself as a youngster? What were you like?
What shall I say? There isn't much what to say. I was very religious, and I didn't do much. I mean, I didn't run around like today. They have parties or so. I didn't have that. I used to learn, read a lot, help out at home when I was home, and that's about all. There was no going out with girls, running around or something. We didn't have that.
Did you have any hobbies or interests yourself as a young man that you pursued at that time?
I really didn't have anything much. As I say, I was busy with learning and with helping out at house, so I didn't have time. My hobby, I liked very much to play soccer, but my mother never let me. I didn't have time. There was never a time for it.
You were, I know you had many siblings, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Where were you?
I was the youngest.
You were the youngest of
Yeah,
all of them?
Yeah. My older brother got married and had a daughter already, and I was born. So my mother was very unhappy because she was ashamed that her son, the older one, has also a child and I'm born. You know, it was kind of different.
What were your dreams and ambitions for the future when you were a young man? Before the occupation, what were you dreaming of becoming or doing?
My ambitions? I really liked to be carpenter, but it never came to it, because till I grew up, till I finished with everything, and then the Germans came in, never had anything accomplished during this time.
Did you have non-Jewish friends?
Yeah. Yeah, I had non-Jewish friends, and they were very, very friendly with me. Everything was nice. But when the Romanian came back with the Germans into town, and when a German soldier asked who was a nice man and that, no one of the friends even opened their mouth to say something. So that's your friends.
Did you personally experience any anti-Semitism prior to the occupation?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
What?
They always used to call us, you dirty Jew, you all kinds of names. It was, sometimes they said it in a joke, but you know, in that joke, it's more the real thing. Oh sure, wherever you turned around, whatever you did.
Did you belong to any Zionist youth movements at all?
Yeah, I used to belong to Mizrahi.
As a young man, before the
young man.
occupation?
Yeah.
What did you do with Mizrahi?
Well, to say we were preparing to go to Israel, you know, we went out to farms to learn all kind of farming and that, and we didn't get time in order. As I say, the German came in and the Russian came by in, and it was finished.
Was Mizrahi in Behemet?
Yeah, we had organization, small, but we had connected with the city, you know, with bigger cities that we were connected.
How did your life change when did the Germans come in, first of all?
The Germans came in 1940.
So your life proceeded normally up until 1940, or were there changes before that?
No. In 1939, the Russian came in.
What was life like when the Russians came in?
Terrible.
Can you describe it?
They, first of all, the fifth night or the sixth night, I don't recall exactly, they brought up a long train, about 40 wagons, and they used to go around, and if somebody pointed out to them that he was a little richer or he had some property or whatever, they used to grab the men away at night into that train. And everybody was shaking, was afraid for every minute that they shouldn't take him away.
Where were they
didn't
taking
kill
him?
him, they took him to Siberia, to labor camps up there. That was the first shock that we had. As I say, they didn't kill any people, but the people died there for cold and for food and for everything. And then, in 1940, they went out, and the Germans took back over.
When the Russians were there, they were.
Yeah.
How long were the Russians there, approximately?
Approximately 8 or 9 months.
How else did life change under Russian rule?
Completely.
How?
Whatever you had, you didn't. Everything became Russian. Nothing, your own property, nothing. Except the house, they didn't throw you out from the house. But if whatever you had, something around someplace, they took away from you.
Were you allowed to observe religious?
Not really, not really. We used to pray. We used to hide already, and they came in. It changed completely the whole life.
Were they particularly hostile towards Jews, or was it the entire population?
No, they didn't show hostile to the Jews. They showed hostile against religion. There was no religion that time. That time they didn't want any religion.
In what other ways did life change under Russian rule now?
I told you.
For you, personally?
For me personal, first of all, we had a few acres land which they took right away from us. Right away. As I say, the house they didn't touch because we were still a few children at home, and they didn't throw us out from the house. But they started to charge taxes for everything. If you worked near the house, you had a little ground. and you put some potatoes, or so you had to give them away 20% or 30% potatoes. Or if you had a farm with some alfalfa or something, you had to give so much and so much to them for the army, for the horses. And everything changed over. It was entirely different. Nothing was yours, everything was theirs.
Do you remember the name of any of the Russian leaders that came into the town? Any names stand out to you?
We had I don't remember exactly the names anymore. The army came in that time mostly. And then they came with secretaries from the parties, and they took over everything, and they gave the command, and they ordered everything. And that's all. And right away they put up a militia, and that's it.
During the time that the Russians were there, what were you doing? Were you working at this point, or were you still in school?
Oh, no, I worked. I went, the Russian sent me to make a course of a mechanical course, some kind. So I was there about 4 months.
Where did they send you?
To Chernivtsi. And then, when I came back, the German took over again, and they went back out.
So when you came back from the training, the Germans
came back. Yeah.
Do you remember the circumstances of what happened when the Germans came in and the Russians went out? What happened?
When the Russians went out, the Germans came in. We only knew one thing: to hide out, nothing else. I didn't see anything else. I don't remember anything, just to run and to hide. But then, the third day or the second day, first of all, the Gentile, they started to take away everything from the houses. Whatever it was in the house, they took out everything. The houses were empty. And then the third day, they put us together. They took us together, and they started that march to the, as you call it, the dead march.
When was this?
That was in 1940, the end of 1940.
What time of the year? Was it winter or it?
It was in the cold. I think it was October or November, something like that. Why do I remember? Because on the way, and we were sleeping outside overnight, standing outside, sleeping outside. A lot of bodies were frozen dead on the place where we were stopped when they let us stop.
So the Germans came into your town in
with the Romanians.
With the Romanians in
1940.
And
yeah.
How long did you remain in town before you were sent on this march?
3 days or 4 days.
And then what happened? They rounded. Did they round up?
Then we ran around between people that we know, Gentiles. So we came up with some wagons, horse and wagons, which they allowed a few of them to put whatever we could take on our bags, they allowed us to have the bags to put on the wagons. And there when that march started.
What did you take with you?
I take a coat and a couple of shirts and some flour, some bread, what we had prepared because we knew we were going, and whatever we could.
Survivor is Boris Ivanir. The date is March 3rd, 1996. Boris, we left off on the last tape talking about the Germans coming into your town. Let me just backtrack for 1 minute to ask you, did you have knowledge, personal knowledge, did you know about Hitler as he was rising to power in Germany?
Yeah, we knew that.
What did you know about him?
Well, we knew from the newspapers. We knew that he's coming to power. We knew that. But we didn't think that he's going to come to Berlin. We thought it's in Germany. And we had one sister came to visit us, but she used to live in Romania with a baby, so she came, she had a new baby, and she came to visit us. And when we found out that the Russians are pulling back and the German with the Romanian are coming back in, I took my sister to, there was a last train that came into town, and I put her on that train with the baby and I sent her away, which we were worried, but luckily she went back and she survived. Otherwise she would never have been survived. So if I would have gone with her, I wouldn't have had this, all my troubles, but I couldn't leave my mother, so I had to come back.
So you mentioned before that the Germans were in town about 3 days.
Yeah, the Germans were in town about, I don't remember exactly, 3 or 4 days.
And what happened?
And they started to concentrate on one place, and they told us every Jew should come to this place. And we came there, and that was late in the afternoon. And then the next morning, they told us that we were leaving.
What place was it?
That was Berlin still.
I mean, did they concentrate you in a building? What kind of building
They
was it?
were concentrating us. It was a big place by the railroad station. So over there we concentrated.
How many people would you?
Oh, whatever it was in the Jews, I don't remember exactly, but there was about at least 200-300 or 4. I don't remember.
And how long did you stay in this building?
Well, we stayed there, I'll say 10 or 12 hours, maybe more. And they put us with the wagons and we started to walk.
Who was in charge?
In charge was a Romanian sergeant major with about 10 soldiers. The Romanian. The Germans didn't go with us. They were left over. I don't know what they did. But there was a Romanian officer.
You remember his name?
Oh yes, Mihuța.
Mihuța?
Yeah,
How
I
would you
never forget it.
How would you describe him?
He was tough. He was a young, tough guy, and he liked money. But he was tough, and he had a horse. He was riding on the horse, and we walked.
So you all were told to start walking.
We all started. We have to leave Berhmet. We are going. That's all.
Did they tell you where you were going?
Nothing. Nothing.
So tell me about the march or the walk.
When they start to take us, we were going to one place, to a city, and there was night. We stayed overnight. Then slowly they took us farther. We went, and people started to die. There was older people, younger people started to die already at the beginning. After we went about 3 days, we stopped in a place. It was called Iedinic in Bessarabia, also Romania, but it was a different province. And we slept overnight in a park, wooded park, as much as I remember, because my memory now is very bad. And in the morning, when they put the wagons together that we should leave, they went over the bodies. They were stiff, frozen. Everyone that was there was frozen. Children, older women. That already started. The worst night was that night for us, for me especially, because I saw already what's going on there.
Who were you with?
I was with my mother, an older brother, 3 sisters, and 5 nephews. Was 3 sisters, 4 sisters. One died there in Iedinic. She's buried there.
One of your sisters?
Yeah.
Which sister is this?
That was Fici.
And what did she die from?
She died she was a weak person anyway. So she died from exhaustion, I guess.
They had you march during the day, is
Oh
that
yeah,
correct?
we marched till late in the evening. They only stopped to feed the horses. That was the only time when they stopped. They didn't stop because it was food we had. They stopped near little markets who had a few dollars, some money, bought something there. Between they allowed to buy some. And this is how we struggled. And some people took, as I said, we had some flowers with us, and we cooked there. Don't ask. It was a nightmare. These trips.
What did you eat yourself? Do you remember?
What I ate, we bought. I remember my older brother bought some few potatoes, and we had some flour, and I don't remember what else. Yeah, we had some dried meat from home that we still were hiding it, so we had a little piece. So 2-3 days wasn't bad, but then it started slowly to was no food already.
What were your sleeping accommodations at nighttime? Where did you sleep?
On the road, on the wherever we stopped, they slept on the floors, but we didn't have anything to sleep. There was a wagon standing that had our packages somewhere near the wagon. We were sitting down there and sleeping, and it was sleeping. It was sleeping. It was terrible.
Was there snow yet? I know you said it was.
Oh yeah, it was.
Late
It
part.
wasn't so much snow, but it was frost. Terrible frost there. It was one night was just unbelievable, unbelievable. And then was raining, and that we went on like this for about three days.
Were there punishments along the way?
Well, the punishment was, they went with sticks, and whoever couldn't walk much, so they used to beat them and push them that they should go faster, and that was most of it. But the punishment came when we were about 20 kilometers from the border where we went over to Mogilev. There was the problem. Like, they stopped us. They didn't stop us, but they took out young people, men, mostly men. The convoy went farther. They took us out. They took me and a brother of mine, and an uncle of mine, and some neighbors, some other people from us. We were about 30 or 40 people. We stopped, and suddenly they say that we should start digging a groove there.
Start digging.
A ditch. And they showed us how big. So I was suspicious. I was young that time, or 16, 17 years. I was suspicious about the whole thing. But we had no choice. We started to dig, till about, that was lunchtime till about 5, 6 o'clock. We digging. By 6 o'clock, it was quite I barely went out of that ditch already. And he started to line up the people, and that was that young officer that I told you at the beginning that went with us, came over, and there was 3 or 4 soldiers, and he says to them, "Who knows how to shoot good?" So the guys, this one came up, and they were standing like this, and he started to shoot, and they just fell into the ditch, one after the other. But it was already not dark, but it was, it was already after sunset. It was late because the days were short, wasn't too long. And he started to shoot. Then he told me and I was friendly with him because he had problem with his saddle on the horse, and I fixed him, and he got kind of friendly with me. So I thought, that I wouldn't have any problems. So when they lined us up, I went out, and they started yelling, "Where are you going? You stand up there." I said, "I have to tell something to the sergeant major." And I said, "Look," I spoke Romanian, and I said, "Look, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, has a big golden watch with a chain. And if you kill us, you will never know who it was. He say, if you take me back there, I'll give it to you because I don't need it anymore. He looked at me and said, you're not lying, you're not going to just because you want to save yourself. I said, why should I lie? You'll get me there, so why should I lie? So he said, okay, come out. I said, yeah, but I have my brother here. He looks at me, yells at me. He said, okay, take him out. I said, yeah, but my uncle is here. Oh, he said, yells and yells. He said, okay, so the three of us. He took us, and we started to run, not to walk. But it was too far, so he brought a wagon that we should sit on the wagon, we should go faster because the convoy was already quite a bit because it was 4 or 5 hours that we were behind them. And luckily we came to, don't remember the city, on the border where we had to go over. There was the Dnieper, a big river. Somehow his officers called him away, and I never saw him anymore. That was luckily. I don't know if he looked for me or not, it doesn't matter, but I escaped. And we came over to that border. There was the bridge. They called it, had a name, that bridge. And the Dnieper was fairly deep, was about 10 feet, 15 feet deep going. It's not that it was deep, it was rushing, it was a river. And we were sleeping there, sitting there someplace in a, it wasn't even a park, I don't know, it was a big place. And in the morning, they started out, they called us, and they said that here on the river, we should cross over the river. And I look at them, I know how to swim. My brother was an Olympic swimmer, but there is women and children and everything. So they said, okay, the women and the children should go through the bridge. So they were standing in line to go through the bridge, and we men should go through the river. There was a few older people that somehow they ran away and they ran to the bridge and they crossed the bridge. Some people went in and they just disappeared in the water before even they went in. My mother, the kids, and the woman, they went through the bridge, and me, my brother, and more people there, we were swimming through the river. We made it. Some of them didn't make it, but we made it. We ran over to the other side, and we were living.
So how many people would you say you started out with, and how many people survived and how many didn't? Do you have any idea?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know exactly, no way. But because as soon we came over on the other side, I lost people. One went there, one went there. I didn't see them anymore, most of them. Some of them, the family and so, we were sitting together, but the other ones, they're gone. We came into that Mogilev, and there was nothing. They didn't give us nothing. Nobody was there to give.
Where is Mogilev?
Mogilev was on the border from Romania to the Ukraine. And the Romanians sent us out there. They didn't want to have us in Romania anymore, but they sent it to Ukraine, to Russia, because this part the German gave to the Romanian. And when we came over, so when we were in Mogilev, there was very problem with food. So what happened? We had in the packages, we had suit, shoes, whatever we could drag from the home. So, and they were very poor in Russia at that time. So we went out with a pair of pants and we traded it for a few potatoes, for a piece of meat, something what is possible. And that's how we survived the days in Mogilev.
Where did you stay in Mogilev?
In Mogilev, our family stood in a Jewish home where the Jews were there, but they were also already taken out from they were also in the ghetto already, the Ukrainian, the Russian good, the Jews. So we found there a family, we went into there, but we were in there for, what was it, 14 people or 15 people. They had one room, don't ask. But they were nice enough to let us stay with them.
Was this part of a ghetto?
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
a ghetto in
Yeah,
Mogilev.
in Mogilev.
How big was this ghetto? How could you
It was
describe it? How many blocks?
It was big. It was a quarter of the city. I don't know how many blocks because I didn't know that town, that city. It was quite a big city in Mogilev.
Was it surrounded by a gate or barbed wire? Or
Well, one side was the water, and the other side was police and militia. You couldn't move any place. You couldn't go any place. It wasn't surrounded by anything.
Who guarded the gate? Who guarded it?
There was no gates, but the militia, the Ukraine militia, they were
Ukrainian.
worse than the German.
Describe the room that you stayed in.
It was a big, long room. That's what I remember. And the kitchen was in that room. And we slept on the floor. There was no water. There was a faucet about half a block away, and it was running so slow that to get a half a pail of water was take a half an hour we couldn't fill it up because there were people staying in line. So it was terrible. The life there was just unbearable.
How would you describe what was your day like in this ghetto? Describe a day there.
A day?
Yeah. Typical day there. What
Typical
was it like?
day there was like this. Sitting in the house, being afraid to get out because of they shouldn't grab you. Once they grab you, they take you away on a labor someplace, or they send you to the Germans, or you never know where you're going to survive. Or you will survive, or they're going to kill you. You never know. So most of the people were sitting inside as much as possible in that clave in. And one of us had to run out to look for some kind of something to eat, something to get there. So that was going on and out, and it was very difficult, very, very, very difficult.
How did you manage to get food?
I told you how. The only food we managed, we had something, we sold it, and the peasants were sitting in the markets there, and they allowed us to go there. And we went and we traded for something, money. I didn't have any money, so we traded whatever we could, with a pair of shoes or a pair of a shirt or whatever we had taking from home, which they allowed us to take a bundle with us. So we traded it.
Did you ever leave the ghetto actually to get this food? Did you go outside of the ghetto to get the food?
It was almost there. It was almost there, that little markets. The peasants, the women, they used to come close to us to trade. They knew a piece of soap, anything you had, you could trade.
In this ghetto, were you assigned any work?
Not yet. We one time there came some Germans and they took some young people away. But luckily my section, they didn't come so close, so I came there. But we weren't there too long. We were there only 3 or 4 months, I don't know exactly.
During the time you were there, did you
Yeah.
witness any punishments inside this ghetto?
Oh, you had punishment wherever you turned around. Anybody that wanted and liked to hit you or to whatever he wanted to do with you, there was no mercy. Nobody could tell him yes or no or whatever. Anybody. And we had nobody that protect us. Nobody.
Were you punished inside the ghetto at all?
I was punished twice.
For what?
Once I was running to the market to get something from a woman in a militia. They grabbed me and he hit me. I'll never forget him. And the second time, at the market, I didn't have anything what to trade. So I grabbed from a woman about 5 potatoes. And they started to yell, and the militia came after me, and he ran after me, and he hit me, and he gave me hell, but I couldn't help it. That was the things that what I had in that ghetto, in that Mogilev. So after a couple, 2 or 3 months, my brother and some people that we met already on the ghettos, they assigned us to the town to Berhumet.
Let me just interrupt you for a minute to
Yeah.
ask you a couple more questions about
Yeah.
the ghetto. Was there a Judenrat or Jewish police?
No, not yet, no.
Not in the
No,
ghetto.
no, in that ghetto, no in Mogilev.
So the
I don't know, they said later it was something, but when I left, there was no...
so the
I
only
don't know.
leaders were the
The
Ukrainians.
Ukrainian militiamen, the Romanian, and the Germans came in only to take out for work every day young people.
Was there any resistance at all inside the ghetto? Did anyone try?
Not there, not that I know. Not that I know.
Did you have a support group of men that you were able to be with during the day at all?
Well, we were all there. We were all sitting there together. Most of the people, we couldn't get out, so we were sitting one next to the other. There was nothing to do.
Were you able to maintain any religious observances at all inside the ghetto?
Inside the ghetto, between us, we observed. Sure, we observed.
How were you able to do that?
We used to, when you need 10 people to pray, so we had people, there was no problem, and we prayed in a corner, someplace, wherever we lived. Whoever had a little bit more place, so we did, sure we did.
Were there any organizations or institutions inside the ghetto,
No.
such as a hospital if anybody
Nothing.
became ill, or a school for the children?
Later on, they got a little hospital. Some of the Jewish people had some organized for children. A home was there, made up. That was these philanthropists from Romania, the rich people, they helped to that. Because in Romania, with a lot of money, you could help yourself.
But when you were there, none of this existed?
When I was there was nothing in existence yet, no. Because later on, I heard they had it.
Do you remember the names of any of the Ukrainian guards at all of this ghetto? Any names stand out to you?
Nothing. I can't remember nothing. I'm wondering what I remember.
Do you recall any other incident that happened inside the ghetto to you?
To me, yeah, I remember one thing. I had a brother, Yechiel, and he had a heart failure problem. And militia grabbed him there someplace. He wasn't a strong guy, but he went out, to everybody. We went to do something, to get something. So they beat him very much, and he got very sick. And he got sick. We had so much problem with him. There was no doctor. There was no nothing. So there was a Russian guy, and he was a male nurse, something, I don't know. And he came in one time and he helped us a little bit. He wrote some medication. So he got himself together so we could move out from camp. But otherwise, it was under a Romanian supervision. So it wasn't as bad as really under the German. What it was bad was the Ukrainian militia.
Was it both Ukrainian and Romanian that guarded the ghetto?
Yeah, but the Romanian, some people that had a few dollars, they paid off the Romanian, and the Romanian watched that the Ukrainians shouldn't be so mean. But the Ukrainians were very mean, very, very mean. So it wasn't too bad. Then later on, when I left, I heard it was very bad. It changed everything, but I don't know because I wasn't there anymore.
What were the circumstances? Under what circumstances, did you leave the ghetto?
Oh, that's another thing. When we were sitting there, suddenly there was some Jewish committee that they made up, a few. And they arranged there with the Romanians that they gave us a choice, or to stay in the ghetto, or to go small towns, groups to smaller towns. So we decided that it couldn't be worse than Mogilev. So we got together, I'll say about 100 or 120, I don't know exactly. And we said that we can't lose much. We'll be better off to move out from here, which we didn't know where. And there was a few places they showed. We decided on Nemerchi. I don't know. Yeah, why did we decide on Nemerchi? Nemerchi was a big agricultural institute or agricultural. They grow vegetable for experiences. I don't know. I heard about that, and we decided that there maybe will be food, something they'll be able to. So we decided to go there. So we got a little horse and a little wagon for all of us. We should put whatever we had left, that we shouldn't carry it on our backs. And I remember it was winter and it was snowing, and over there is no roads like here, and it was dirt, and it was wet, and we lose the shoes in that bus that we couldn't pull the feet out from there. Finally, we made it in about 2 days. We made it to get there.
What year was this?
That was I think it was already 41.
And you were with who? Who were you with in this wagon?
We were all the group that we organized. The wagon, we didn't go on the wagon. We just put the things on the wagon. We walked with the wagon.
How many people?
I told you it was about 120 or 130 people.
And were
group.
you under guard? Did somebody accompany you?
Nobody. They told us where to go, and that's how we went. And luckily, we got there. And when we came in there was the problem. They looked at us as crazy. And the militia there didn't know about it, and they were rough like anything. But there was a gendarmerie. It's like a policia there. It was an officer and three soldiers. It was one lawyer that he was guiding us. So he went into that officer, and he told him, "Look, we were sent here." And he says, what am I going to do with you here? He said, "Well, that's what they sent us here. We don't know." So I don't know what he did with him, but the Iranian, as I say, with money you can do something. So he took us in. There was a school. He took us in there, and then he said to us, "Talk to the peasants here. If they want to take you in, go ahead, take in." So we went around, everybody looked for somebody, so everybody found a peasant that led us in. So we found like we had a little room for 6 of us, and the rest of the family went to another room.
Survivor is Boris Iwoneer. The date is March 3rd, 1996. Boris, we left off talking about leaving the ghetto of Mogilev and going to Nemerchi. Is Nemerchi a town?
A town.
It took you 3 days to get there, is that correct?
It took us about 2 days.
What was that journey like?
Walking, we went through the fields all the time, walking, not knowing exactly where to go, but we made it.
Was there any chance for escape?
There, no.
Even though you weren't guarded? But
no, we couldn't exchange. There was no way, because it wasn't wooded areas, it was open places. There was no place to escape. And besides, we were strangers there. We didn't know nothing about the whole place.
So you were with your mother and your
I was with my mother, with my sisters, with my brother. We all went, everybody, not everybody. One brother, one from the family went on the other side, but most of us came here.
So what happened when you got to Nimichi?
When we got to Nemichi, it was a big problem, but when we settled down, it was a little easier. We went out to help out the peasants in the fields. We worked for them, so they gave us few potatoes, a little milk. Sometimes we went around, we got the potato peels. We survived there. We ate somehow.
What were your living conditions like in Nemichi?
The living conditions, how shall I tell you, like a igloo. Have you ever been in an igloo? The houses there even weren't so there was no floors, were dirt, you know, the dirt floor. And if it was raining, it was wet. Don't ask. It was impossible to walk. Even in the room was wet. It was soft going on that dirt. And we didn't have heat because there was a stove that we cooked a little bit. We didn't have wood to heat it. With sleeping, we slept. We put up some benches and we slept on that. And on straw, you know. And
were you in a private home with your family, or were you with other people?
Yeah, that was private homes, peasants. They had their houses, and all the family didn't go in. We were divided. I was with my mother and one brother and his wife and one son, and my other brother was with his wife and his 3 children. And the others, everybody was separate because there was no room in these houses. But by the peasants, we worked for them, so they let us live there. They had, like, say, a kitchen, a big kitchen, and some kind of a room. So they lived in that kitchen with a room, and they let us live in that other little room. And that's...
Who guarded? Were there guards?
Oh, yeah, there was police. They were police. There was the Ukrainian police, and there was the Romanian. Sure, they knew everything wherever we move, whatever we do.
What was your particular job? What were you assigned to do in
There was no assignment to do nothing. We had no assignment. Yeah, one time we had an assignment. We built their fence on the road side, both sides, with some fences. We put up stones. There was quite a few weeks we worked on that route. But then we had another problem. The Germans came in and they wanted from us, the young people, men and women, to take away to a bridge to work about 80 kilometers to Žmerinka, to another city. There was only Germans, and to build a bridge there. That was a nightmare. When they took us to that place, we walked. They didn't take us with anything. We walked there for about 5 days or
Who's
6
we?
days.
Who's we?
The Germans.
No, who did you go with to build this bridge? Who were you with?
They picked out from all our people. Were there all the young people.
So your mother was no longer with you at this point?
No, my mother was left, but they take us young people out. I was a young man, and girls in this age, they took girls and boys out to that place under Germans. That was Germans. That was till we got there, walking there, till we got there. When we came there was nothing for us prepared, nothing. Only thing what it was to go to work. It was absolutely nothing. Finally, the next day we got a piece of bread from the Germans every day and some water, and we could get some potatoes to cook ourselves. And we worked on the bridges. And there, where a German, when he hit me, he broke me through here, you see, he wounded me. So I couldn't work anymore because my hand was out of... They didn't bother with me.
Why why did he wound you? What was the
He told me
reason?
something to do, and I didn't do the right thing, so he hit me with a pipe, with an iron pipe. And there was nobody there, nothing. So I turned around, bandaged my hand with a piece of rag, and I went. I would have had that finger done professional. I wouldn't have that finger stick, but so there was no supervision. There were so many Jews there working on these bridges that we didn't even know each other, where and what. So there was my brother and me and another 4 or 5 guys. We looked around at so many people there, and we started to walk back. After a few days, I was wounded. I couldn't do anything, and there was no supervision. Nobody gave us anything. Nobody helped, and they just sent us out to work, and that's all. Nobody was bothering with us.
Did the bridge get built?
Oh yeah, there was a big bridge. As a matter of fact, they tried to bomb that bridge 3 times, and they didn't touch it, and they finished it. And with a few guys, I say, you know something, guys, let's go back to Nemerchi. We got out in one evening, we started to walk back. We didn't walk the same way. We had a hard time to find back. So we came back to Nemerchi after a few days. I came by myself, the other one went other directions, but they came all back to Nemerchi. We came back to Nemerchi. I couldn't do nothing because I was wounded. So this way I used to go some places to peasants, I used to work for them, and I made something to survive, but I couldn't. My mother couldn't do nothing. My brother, one brother, so he used to work. His wife was sick, couldn't do it. And that brother got typhus there, got sick.
Which brother is this?
I got sick first on typhus. And then that other brother, Fischl, got sick on typhus, and there was no cure, no nothing, nobody take care of us. The only thing what the peasants told us to do, to drink sour milk with a potato to eat, not to eat anything much. And I had some neighbor, a Gentile, who was very nice. So his wife used to bring me a little bit of sour milk with sometimes a potato. And I got out of that sickness somehow. But I was so sick, my hair fell out of my head, and I was so sick that was a kid from about 2 years old that he used to push me. He had fun of it, and I used to fall because I couldn't hold myself. But the other brother was a heavier man, and he couldn't survive it, and he died right away on that typhus. Then was another brother, the one that had problem with his heart, also died on typhus there. There was nobody, there was no doctors, there was nothing, no medication, no nothing, who could do anything.
Were you able to give them a burial?
Oh, wait, we have to come back a little bit. When we were in Mogilev, they took us out to work, also building a bridge there over a water. And they took a lot of people, because there were a lot of people in Mogilev. And they took me, they took an uncle of mine, and they took my brother-in-law, and some other people that I didn't know, and we had to go through the water to the other side to work. They used to build the bridge this way. And one evening, when we finished work and we had to go back into the ghetto, the water suddenly came rushing. And we were holding each other, you know, to go through. So one used to hold each other to go through. The water came rushing and it broke the line. And my brother-in-law and my uncle and other few people went with the water, with the rush. I grabbed my uncle, because I saw him. I was a swimmer, so I grabbed him. I pulled him over a little bit to the side, and I ran after my brother-in-law to see. He disappeared. Didn't see him anymore. So don't ask. When I came home, it was unbelievable what's going on in the house. The same time in Mogilev, which I forgot to tell you when we were before there, that two of my sisters got also sick on that typhus business, and they died. So this brother-in-law died in the water someplace. The sister died at home after 2-3 days, and there were 3 children. The other sister died. She also had 2 children and a husband. The husband died also in the ghetto, and the 2 children, somebody from his side, I don't remember who it was, took the children, and then later on they went into the children's house there, I know, in there. But the 3 children from the other sister, we took with us to Nemerchi. These 3 children helped us a lot. They helped us because when they went begging to the peasants there, they used to give them something, a piece of bread, a few potatoes. So they brought home a little food. So it helped us a lot, really a lot. After a year or so, we heard that in Mogilev is that children home already, that some people from Romania there helped out to that. So I took these 3 children to Mogilev, and they went into that home. So that was easier for them because they didn't have to go. They had the food there a little bit in that home. But for us it was harder because they helped out really a lot, going and bringing something. So that was the problem what we really had in Mogilev that I forgot to tell you before in the other tape. When we came back to Nemerchi from Žmerek, from that work, suddenly they started to take women out from us, labor to the Germans. That was a big problem. That was a big headache. We knew that that's a problem because if we take to the Germans only women, we know that's not going to be. Why? What? We didn't know. So they took some women away from us. Some of them came back very abused, but some of them came back. So that was the time. That was 2 years or so. On the 3rd year.
This is in Nemerchi.
In Nemerchi.
So what year are we talking about?
We're
now?
talking in 42, the beginning 43.
The children's home that you talked about, just to repeat.
That was in Mogilev.
In Mogilev, was that a Romanian home, a Jewish home? Under what auspices?
That was Jewish kids.
And it was run by who?
By Jews. As I said, these philanthropists from Romania, they had a lot of money. Somehow they made it up there. It was a mess inside, but they had a little food for them.
Do you know who the philanthropist was? The name?
I knew that name for a long time, and maybe someday I'll remember. He was a famous man in Romania, and with money the Romanian still helped, and he helped a lot the Jews. That's because the Jews in Romania wasn't so bad like in other places, because of him.
So now you were in Nemerchi, you said, for about 3 years, is that
It
correct?
was about 2.5, 3, something like that.
And during this time you were taken to do work
Over
for
the
the
time,
peasants.
I used to work there on roads a lot, and I used to go to peasants' work. They used to like me to come to help them because I was a good worker. So I had work by them. I used to dig. They didn't have plows or horses, so I used to dig by hand, as much as I could.
And in exchange for your work, did you get
Bread,
anything at all?
food. That was good. We had food. It was very good. And then by the end, I heard, not that I heard, but a guy, a Russian guy, Ukrainian, whatever he was a young student, and he was communist, you know, communist, that to him people were the same. There was no different Jewish or non-Jewish. He was really, told me, I was working at their home someday, and he says to me, why don't you go to the underground, to the partisans? I say, how am I going to go to the partisans? He says, well, I'll find out and I'll take you. He says, okay, find out and I'll go, because what can I lose? What can I lose? My mother wasn't happy. My brothers looked at me that I'm crazy, but I didn't have much what to lose. So after a few days, he came back and he says to me, are you ready to go? I say, I'm ready. And he took me away. It was about 15 kilometers or 20. They were not too far from us. And I come in and they start asking me questions. There was a Gruzin from Georgia, a Russian officer, but tough, you know, tough. And he says to me, are you Jewish? I say, yeah, I'm Jewish. He says, we don't have any Jewish people coming first, but how come? I say, well, I don't know, but I say, I heard that you are here. I'm trying to come. So he says, well, you can get yourself a gun, a rifle, and a horse. You can come with us. So that was the hardest thing for me, because how am I going to get a horse and how am I going to get a gun? Where am I going to get it? I'm afraid to go out someplace, you know. So that guy that took me to them says to me, don't worry, I'll help you. I say, how are you going to help me? He says, you come with me. He took me to a kolkhoz. You know what a kolkhoz is? Collective farm. There was a guard. He was talking to the guard and asked him everything, and not far were horses. He says, you go and get a horse. I went and I got a horse, but I need a gun. And it wasn't a fat horse, it was a skinny kind of a horse, and I didn't have it, not a saddle, no nothing, and don't ask. I couldn't walk when I was sitting on that horse. And he got with that guard there talking so long that he told him where I can get a gun. So he went and he brought me a gun. And that's how I got a gun and a horse. And on the next day I went back to them and I had a gun and a horse. But he got me a little blanket to put on the horse, that saved my life. I would never have been able to do it on that horse. And that's how I started to be in the underground.
Well, who was this man that helped you so much?
I told you, he was a Ukrainian there. I was working and helping them in the gardens. So when he told me, he was a communist, but you know, a scholar, not a communist, a raw one, but he was really ideological communist. And to him, people were equal. It was no different. A person is a person, rich, poor, there is no rich to him. And he was a very nice guy, but was always sitting about the books and was reading. You know, he was very, very intellectual, very, very nice guy.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, his name was Tolia. And that's how I came into the underground.
Did this underground, the partisans group you were with, did they have a name or a number?
I didn't know a name, and I didn't even know a name from the cameras, from the officers. Nothing. They didn't even wanted to know my name. They knew my name, but my name was Boris, and why did I have that name? I looked like a Russian. That's why I had that name. So they knew my name. And then they were friends with me. Then they liked me, because when I went with them on one mission to bomb their bridge, and we came back, they looked at me different. I was all right with them. It was very camaraderie, very friendly.
Was it
very,
just men?
just men?
Do you remember any of the leaders of the group?
I remember the leader that was from Georgia. I remember him very well.
Do you know his name?
His name was Weinkauf, the first name. That's all that I know.
Tell me more about your activities with the partisans. What actually did you do?
I didn't do anything personal by myself. We went groups.
What did you do?
When we knew that a convoy, a German convoy came, we knew we had to prepare to break to the roads or these bridges, to bomb the bridges. Or that was our duties. It was nothing special or something. Only that.
So what weapons did you have?
What weapons? We had a lot of dynamite, and we had rifles. That's all we had.
Did you use both?
Yeah, the dynamites we used, we put them up under the bridges, under the roads. We needed that. And the rifles, we couldn't fight any military. Would they have munition? We had nothing. We fight, but not much. And beside that, we didn't shoot even much because they should know where we are.
So where did you camp out? Where did you sleep?
Mostly in the woods. Mostly in the woods. Sometimes when we had a kolkhoz, a collective farm, that he was with us connected, so we went there and we slept. We used to take food always from these collective farms.
Do you recall any other incidences with the partisans that happened to you?
Yeah, I remember one incident that almost lost my life. Very, very, very. We went to put some dynamite under a bridge. And when the convoy came over to that bridge and it blew up, we were not far from a wooded area, and till we got to the wooded area, it was a long story, but we got there. And when we got there, the Germans sent out the Messerschmitts, the airplanes, and they started shooting over the woods, with these planes. And we were, that time over there, we were about 60 people. And when I went out with that commander and another 4 guys and some other people on the other side, we were left about 12 people. And in that wooded area was some soft places where it was water and not water and covered with debris from the trees. And we didn't know. It was very hard to get through that. But if you have to live, looks like, so we went through. That was a war by himself there in these woods. It was unbelievable. They didn't come in too much. They didn't go in. They were afraid for us. They thought, who knows what we have. Because when they heard partisans, they used to be afraid a little bit. They didn't come close into the woods. From outside, they used to shoot and bomb and everything is possible, but they didn't come in closer. So we survived a few people.
Out of how many people did you start out with?
I think it was about 60 people that we had in that command there.
And after the bombardment?
After bombardment, there was left maybe 12. Maybe 12.
Was the commander still, the leader still
Commander
alive?
was still a leader. He went strong. He wasn't afraid for anything. I never saw such a man in my life.
Were you camped out near Nemetchi? Was it right outside?
Oh, no, that was away from Nemetchi.
Where were you,
That was already closer to the Polish border, where the Russian army went that side. And we were in front of the armies.
So how many miles would you say you covered?
Oh, we covered, we went from one place to the other. We covered a lot of miles on the horses. We covered, who knows, hundreds and hundreds of miles.
Did you have food?
Yeah, food was no problem, because we went in with force, to a collective farm, to a kolkhoz, and we used to take out from their food. We used to take a cow or bread, meat, anything. There was no problem. Food we got, like terrorists are getting. was no problem. There was a lot of people that they helped us because they were still communists, you know, that they didn't like the Germans, and they helped us with everything they could.
Were you the only Jew?
The only Jew.
And how was that for you?
No problem. After I came back, after the first mission, I was okay. No problem. And then we came in one place, and as I'll never forget, when the Germans looked for us, for the partisans, and they killed those kids. They hung them on strings, they hung them. That was a scene that not Jewish, but Gentiles.
Partisans?
Not the partisans. The German killed the people there because they didn't want to tell them where we are. They didn't know. We moved from one place to the other. They didn't know. So what they did there, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
These were children in the local population?
Children in the local population, they killed them like anything. Like anything. That's unbelievable what they did.
What else happened while you were with the partisans?
Well, it happened. It happened a lot of times. We had some wounded people. The wounded people was a big problem. To carry him to a place where it was a little, they were afraid to take him in because they were from the partisans, and it was problems. It was problems, but a person didn't mean nothing to them. And these partisans, they don't give a damn for anything. They have to go, they go, and that's it.
How long did you remain with the partisans?
I was quite a few months, till the Russians liberated the places. As soon the Russian caught up with us, I started to go back to look for my mother.
So when was this?
That was April. I don't remember exactly, 44.
So what happened was the Russians caught
The
up
Russian
with
caught up with us, and they wanted us. They went, the other guys, this commander and everything, but they wanted me to go in the army to enlist to them. So I kind of said not yet, and then I ran away back to see where my mother is and where the family is.
Tape number 4, survivor is Boris Ivaner. The date is March 3rd, 1996. Boris, we left off on the last tape. You mentioned that you were liberated by the Russians. When was
Right.
this?
That was spring 44, I think.
And where was this?
There in Nemerchi.
And that's when you went back to...
And back there was my mother there and my family.
What condition did you find your family in when you went back?
Same thing. It was a little bit worse because they didn't have much what to eat there, but it was all right.
What happened next?
And when I came back, and I found them all there, and the Russians were supposed to come. Other places, they were there already. I mean, we didn't see them in Nemerchi, but in Mogilov, they were already there, the Russians. So I went to the kolkhoz, to that collective farm in Nemerchi, and they allowed me, it was a little horse, and was a two-wheeler wagon some kind. So they allowed me to take that. I took that and I put my mother on it because she couldn't walk already too much. And my sister-in-law and the son, because my brother was dead. And the other family, they were by themselves. And we went on the way to Mogilev, because that was the only way to go home to our places. There's no other way. And we came to Mogilev, and soon we overslept in Mogilev. And there I saw somebody, and I got some food, a little bit of bread I got, and some food on the road. And we started to go through the bridge back to the other side. There was a Russian's checkpoint, and they saw me, and they wanted me to take me in the army because I'm a young man. And I told them I'm only 16. How can you take me in the army? No, you're already that. I had a fight there for about 6 hours till they let me go through. When they let me go through, yeah, and I had a rabbi that I helped him go back. I put his thing on my little wagon that I had, and he walked with us. He told him that I'm his son when we went back. We had problems on all the way till Chernovitz about 6 times that they wanted to take me, to draft me. One time, and was an officer on the way that was already not far from Chernovitz, about 20 kilometers. It was a Jewish officer. When he saw the rabbi going with me, so he knew right away that we are Jewish, and the soldiers stopped me and they brought me in, as a young to take me away. Also, when he saw me and he saw that rabbi with us, he says, so where are you going? I say, we're going from the camp. We're just going back home to our places. So he looked at us, and he said, okay, to the soldiers, let them go. He was an officer, and he said, let them go. And we came into Chernovitz back. I went to Chernovitz. I didn't try to go home to the small town because I was still afraid, which I did right. We came back to Chernovitz. There were the Russian there. Everything is changed on the Russian command, everything. And as soon as I came to Russia, to Chernovitz, it took about 2 weeks. Again, they grabbed me on the street and to take me to the army. They took me in a place where they organized the recruits, and I jumped through the fence. And I went in to, not far was, it used to be the governor in Romania, the seat. So there was the secretary, the Communist Party set up there. And there was the secretary of the party was Chernenko, I remember his name. And I had a little paper from the partisans. And I came in there and I said that I'm looking for work because I was in the partisans. They called me in, they started asking me questions, all kinds of questions, why am I not with them? I told them because when you liberated, I had to go back to take my mother, to bring my mother, all kinds of stories. Finally they said, can you drive? I never drove. I say, yes, I can drive. So they needed drivers that time very badly. So they gave me a paper, how shall I say, that they are not allowed to take me to the army. And that paper was a red little paper. When they looked at it, nobody will touch you. And I never drove. But my luck was they didn't have cars enough. So there was a driver, another driver. They had trucks there, another driver, and on a truck, and he said to the nachalnik, to the manager from the garage there, that he needs a helper, and he took me as a helper. And in 3 days, I knew how to drive. I didn't have the license, but I knew how to drive. And that's how I was settled, because I knew how to drive. they sent me already to get driver's license, which with that red paper from them, I had no problem to get the driver's license. It was easy for me. And this is how I survived that. I was all right. Till that was a few months. Till Khrushchev was the first secretary in Kiev from the Ukraine, from the Ukraine. It was Ukraine. Kiev was the capital from the Ukraine. And when he came to visit there, and he also looked for drivers, he had needed drivers. So they said, we have here a driver, and he was in the partisans. So officer from the NKGB, that is from the Secret Service or whatever you translate it, I don't know exactly, he took me in for about a day with questioning, with all kind of, checked me out and everything. Then he recommended me that I can be a driver for Khrushchev. And so I drove with him. I left my mother in Chernihiv there. The family, all right, they could help themselves already. They went to work. I didn't have problem with my mother. Was with me because I wasn't married. And I went to Kiev with them. They gave me a Jeep that I drove Khrushchev. I drove Khrushchev already in Chernihiv when he came to visit this section. And I took him to one place where he wanted to go. And I told them, I didn't talk to him, he didn't talk much to me, but a colonel was with him. He was his helper, his adjutant, his bodyguard, I don't know what he was. And I explained them that this place have been there, these Ukraine, that they ran away from the General Vlasov, that he went to the Germans. And I know that there is a lot of them, and I don't think that we should go there. That's all I had to say. They say, do you just go where I am telling you? I say, okay, I'm going where you're going to tell me. We went, and we stopped in a little city there, and there where I got mad at him, he said that call up, order there three people and one chauffeur. And I got very mad that time already. And we came to that border to go in, and sure enough, he found out that there are these Banderovцы, these underground terrorists that they left over. We turned back. We came back to Chernihiv, to the headquarters, to the main place, and they called me in. How come that you know there? Who told you that? I say, all the people are talking. I know people, that's Romanian people, that's I know, and they're people. They kept me for about 6 hours interrogating. Why and how do you know them and who are these people? As a matter of fact, there were some people in that underground that from my town, from Berhumet, that I knew them. Anyhow, till they found that I was right and that, and then he took me to Kiev. I should be his driver. And I was there with him for about 3 months. I didn't like the whole situation there, but I couldn't say much. But then one day I say, I have family in Romania, and I'm from Romania, and Romania was communist already, was also communist. So they started to tell me, why do you going to leave, and why do you want to do that, and you are a traitor, and that. I say, why am I a traitor? I'm going to a communist country. I'm going home to my country. And this is, finally, they agreed with me, and they let me. I went back, took my mother. The other family was already out, ran away.
What year was this now?
That was in 45, beginning of 40, middle 45.
Did you know all this time while all of this was happening to you, were you aware of what was going on in Poland and in concentration camps? Did you have knowledge of gas chambers and crematoria? Did you know about that?
No. When I came over to Romania, and I met already some people there, they came from Germany, from all over, Then I knew already everything was going on. Till then, we didn't know. We got in some soap in Nemerchiv, and we didn't know that that's from human being made, that the Germans made it from. But when we came to Romania, on the black markets, they sold it. So a lot of people told us not to buy that. That's made from the Jewish people.
What happened when you?
So I went back to Chernovitz. I left Kiev. I left him, and I was in Chernovitz for about 2 months or 3 months. Back on the old place, I went to work there because they all knew me, and I tried to get a permit to leave to go to Romania, and they took about 2 months to get. So I got, and that manager from here, which I came back to him, he says to me, "You really gonna leave us?" He says. I say, "Well, I want to go with my mother, to my family. I want to go home." So they allowed me to go, and I went through. And when I came to the border,
What border are we talking about now?
Russia, Romania, and with the paper, with everything, he started telling me, "You are a traitor, and you are this." There was an officer, a colonel, and he knew me because I was working in these places, so he knew me. Everybody knew me. And you are a traitor, and he used to look over whatever I had, every bundle. He ripped. I had a pillow. He ripped everything. You would never believe it what he did to me. But then I figured, okay, and I went over to Romania. I was married already because I married in Chernovitz.
How did you meet your wife?
In Chernovitz, when I came back.
How did you meet her?
And I went to a soccer game. Going to the soccer game, she with a girlfriend went to the soccer game. The friend that I went with him knew one girl. So we met and we went together to the soccer game, and that was it.
What is your wife's name?
Herta
And what is her maiden name?
Sponder.
And when were you married?
45 in Chernovitz, a religious family. A rabbi was there, yeah. And I had the militia that they were watching there, that they knew me, all of them. They came to the wedding. Yeah, I got married. And then after the wedding, a few months we left.
Where did you go?
That's a long story. That I went with the Mizrahi. I was in the Mizrahi organization. So my sister was in Bucharest. When I came to Bucharest, and when we started to decide to go farther to Israel, so I belonged to the Mizrahi, and she belonged to the Mizrahi, and there was the organizer from the clandestine to go to Israel. So there was a few days they organized that, and we were 2,700 people. We went by train to Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia there was a small port, Fiuma, the name of that port, a little fishing boat port. There was only two ships there or so. And there came a ship with American sailors, American captain. And we packed us, it was a cargo ship, a small one. That was the name, the Haganah. And they put us up on that ship. And when we started going to Israel after 3 or 4 days being in that port, in Yugoslavia, when we came to Belgrade, from Belgrade also by train at night, they took us to Fiuma, to that little place. And I saw a ship. What did I know? First of all, they told us to leave everything out. There is no room for taking things on board. And after 2 days or 3 days, captain sent out the SOS. We were sinking. We had water in the ship. Finally, after a while, I don't know how long it took, it came an English destroyer. And as soon as he came over close to our ship, and we start jumping on the on the ship, on the English destroyer, and they said, you can't come on this military, you can't come, and so and so. So somehow, I don't know, they send out and and on the boat we started to throw out everything, benches, and there was made up shelves, where to sleep, but bunkers, we broke up everything they threw out. First they took that to feed the ship. They didn't have any fuel, so they burned these woods. And then we threw out everything that the ship shouldn't be heavy. Well, anyhow, these English people, they didn't let us. And finally, they called a tugboat, and they pulled us into Haifa.
Who were you with? Were you with your wife?
I was with my wife.
Were you with your mother?
No, my mother was already with my sister in Romania. She came after. I was with my wife, and I was with these 3 children that I had in Nemerci. They were in Bucharest in a children's home. They came on that boat with us.
How many people were on the boat with you?
2,700.
Were you assigned a particular job on the boat?
No,
In
no.
part of Mizrahi, did you have a particular mission?
No, we just pushed us in on the boat, and they took us to Israel. That was all that was important. And in the meantime, I had from another sister that she died on the way to Nemerci, to Transnistria. We had another sister, and she died on the way, and she had 3 children. And these children, they took them from Mogilev, from the ghetto to Bucharest, and from Bucharest they sent a boat that was the Struma, and they were on that boat when the German torpedoes torpedoed that boat, and they got lost on the way. When we knew about it already, when we were on the Haganah, so we were worrying, we didn't even know what to think. So when we came into Haifa, they pulled us in there, but they didn't let us get off the boat. No way. After 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they took the women off the boats, and the men were staying on the boat, because they didn't let in men for a lot of reasons that time. So we were on the boat over 6 weeks. I didn't know where she is. She didn't know where I am.
Your wife?
Yeah. So we were ready to jump in the water in case whatever happened, we were ready. Finally, after 6 weeks, they took us to a camp athlete near Haifa. But separate. We didn't come to the woman, but we knew already where they are. So we were sitting there, I think about 3 months separate, till they united us together. And then we came out to Israel, which in Israel was okay.
So where did you settle in Israel?
At the beginning, from the camp, I settled in Bat Yam. In Bat Yam, I was there for almost 2 years, not even 2 years when it started with the Arabs. So in Bat Yam was on the border with Jaffa. We were staying there on the border there. I was a commander on one part of that.
Were you in the army?
I was in the army, and I made armor trucks for the Israel army. So I didn't go in the front already in Israel, because I was working for the armor truck for Israel. But I was before the Arabs left Jaffa. When it started out there, we had every night problems there. They used to shoot, and where I was to live, the bullets used to come in my room. And I wasn't there because I was at night I was to guard there. My wife was alone in the house. And then after that, and after about a year or so, I moved to Tel Aviv already. So there was already different.
How long were you in Israel? From when to
I
when?
was in Israel from 1946 till 52.
And what made you decide to leave Israel?
That's a long story. My wife's mother was here, and she used to write every day. It was already after the war. It was already settled, and they used to write. She used to write every so often that for me it's only there and there, everything is there. And so I said, I'll go and I'll see how it is, and I'll come back if it's not right. And I'm still here, so that's the story. It didn't end right. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it.
So let me make sure I understand correctly. You came to, your wife went first to America, or you both came together?
We both came together.
When did you come to
In,
America?
I think it was September 1952.
And where did you settle?
My brother was here. I was in Brooklyn for about a week, and then I settled in the Bronx. And then I went to New Jersey, and then I came back to Manhattan, to Washington Heights.
What occupation or career did you pursue?
Well, my brother was in the meat business, so I was with him a couple of years. And I knew a little bit about the diamond business, so another friend said, "You're crazy, come to the diamond business." And that was my career.
Do you have children?
Yeah, I have my daughter.
And what is her name?
Her name is Judy.
And when was she born and where?
She was born in 1962 in the Bronx. Not Montefiore. Maybe yes. Montefiore Hospital, I think.
And are you presently retired now?
Yeah.
And where do you live full time now?
In Phoenix, Arizona.
When did you come to Phoenix?
In 1967.
Before we end, I'd just like to ask you a few more questions.
Yeah.
The fate of your siblings, your brothers and sisters that died
Yeah.
in the Ukraine, were you able to give them a burial at all?
No. No. One brother we did give a burial, but the rest we don't even know where they are.
So you were one of how many children?
Originally, I'm from one of 14 children, but some kids died before, and
How many died during the Holocaust?
during the Holocaust there was Leitje and Fritze and Rivke, Fischl and Yechiel, Mishilim, about 6 or 7, I don't even know.
Your father had died earlier, correct?
No, my father had died at the age of 54. He was young, he died.
And your mother came to Israel?
Yeah, my mother came through the camps and I brought her to Israel. She was in Cyprus for a few months, but then they let her in.
Why do you feel you survived? Do you have any thought?
Well, I survived. I believe in fate. I don't know. I had so many occasions to be killed, like I don't know, even in Israel, when I was in the trench, and a bullet came from an Arab, and he pulled my helmet, moved over to the other side from the bullet. But if you have to live, you live.
Do you dream at all, or did you dream about any of your experiences during the Holocaust?
I used to have terrible nightmares, but lately I don't have it anymore.
Did the Holocaust in any way change or affect your religious beliefs?
Not really. It was a time that I was thinking, but no, it didn't. It didn't change my religious. No, nothing.
Do you have any advice for your daughter and for future generations and for the world after having experienced what you did? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I have an advice. People shouldn't give up believing in their God and their religious. That helps if you have something in your mind. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot. So I had an occasion in Nemerchi. It was Yom Kippur, and we gathered a few people, you know, and I was the one to carry on with the services. And as soon as we started there, about 10 minutes, a few policemen, a few Germans ran in and they grabbed the people to work. So other people said, so you see, you wanted to thank God and pray, and you see what happened. But that isn't so. It's still, God helped me a lot of places and I survived.
Is there anything else you feel you left out or you'd like to say?
Well, I left out a lot of things because of my memory. But the only thing what I can say, that I thank God that I'm here, that I survived and I could make it. That's all that I can say.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.